Okay, call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Review and approve the minutes for May 22nd, 2023, regular select board meeting. There's a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Any open public comment? Seeing none, we'll go on to discussion and action items. Review of the bills. Everybody signed the bills?
Yes.
Next on the agenda is Public Nuisance Ordinance Amendment. Public feedback for the district with conditions for keeping certain animals. All right. I assume most people are here for chickens. Is there anybody that wants to address the issue? What we're here for tonight basically is the last time that we had met, we talked about creating a map that would show like local, in the residential area versus farmland, and that the restrictions for farmland didn't apply the same as that would to a residential home within the town limits.
Find the power button on it.
Any comments by anybody?
Oh,
Bill?
yeah. Yeah, I just thought, it'd be easier to hear people.
Chickens because A, it's infringing on somebody's right to feed themselves and feed their family. And B, you're punishing people who would normally, you're treating everyone like a criminal because it's somebody that doesn't, one person might not be controlling their chickens, so everybody else has to be in some kind of ordinance. I don't like the fact that you want to treat everyone like a criminal because of maybe one person or something like that. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, when we look at this, we look at the town, when you guys get that, I mean, look at the sewer department. You guys get, what, $1,000 from every household per year, basically, to run the sewer and water department, and the whole thing is in the shambles. And here you are, you guys want to talk about, like, coming after people for their chickens. It'd be good to see the select board just take care of the very basics that they're assigned to take care of with the tax money. And then when they have that straightened out, then they can start telling other people how to live their lives. That's the way I feel about it.
So I just want to speak to the fact that it has nothing to do with water and sewer, and the fact that water and sewer pipes, the infrastructure falls apart over years. So they do maintain that. The money that we collect is basically to take care of those damages that are done. So that's a totally different side story. And I don't think we're punishing anybody. We're allowing anybody to have chickens. We're just trying to keep them contained within their property.
Speaking to the part about containing them to their property, I have chickens that they don't fly, like they don't get off the ground, but I'm gonna say more than a foot.
Right.
I don't think that the town should be saying that I can't let them out of their coop to graze in my backyard while I'm out there. They're not crossing anybody's property line, and I feel that it's wrong that that's trying to be regulated.
So I think in some part, I mean, when we said contained, we didn't specify it had to be in a coop. So if you had a yard that was fenced in and your chickens don't fly, they're contained.
Right, that's saying that I would have to fence my entire property, and
If you let your chickens loose, so they don't infringe on other people's property.
I feel like you're not hearing me say that they don't go.
Oh, I know, I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying not everyone's chickens don't.
Right, so that should be resolved between neighbors, not something that is done at this level. It's a neighborhood, it's a neighbor versus neighbor issue. We don't live in an HOA. This is Vermont, where we are an agricultural state, and as Phil said, that we should be able to, said we should be able to have animals and keep them on our property the way that fits us for food purposes.
If you keep your chickens on your property, I don't have an issue in the world. But that's not happening, and we are getting complaints.
And those
Neighbors are talking to neighbors, and the complaints continue.
then they should put up fencing.
What?
But my chickens haven't left my property, so why is
Well-
that something that should be?
If they're on your property, we don't have a problem with it.
No, we're getting complaints from people who are saying the chickens are coming onto their property.
Correct.
Then they could remedy that themselves. It shouldn't be done at a town level.
And how would you remedy that?
Well, if my neighbors had chickens that were coming on my property and I didn't want them, I could personally put up my own fence. I don't need town to.
So
tell
I
me.
should have to pay for a fence because of your chickens?
That's
Or you
not-
talk with your neighbor and work it out between the two of you.
As I just said, it's not working.
Then they could take it to wherever, but it's not a town issue.
If there's no ordinance, they can't take it anywhere.
They can take it to small claims court. It's
No.
not.
It's Vermont. I mean, that the right to own animals is something that we have here.
And if you look in Vermont, most towns and cities have ordinances against fowls. So if you look at it, they do, and there's restrictions. And you do it so that you have the right to have chickens, but your neighbor who doesn't want chickens has the right to do what they want with their property. So it's being fair to everybody. We can't just pick and choose. So if,
But you are.
no, we're not. We're just making it an ordinance for everybody. So you have chickens, we're not taking your chickens away from you, but your neighbor who doesn't want chickens can also do what they want on their property without chickens going over into their property. That's the reason for ordinances, to try to make it fair for the majority.
You're saying that my chickens can't be free on my yard, and that's what I have a problem with.
If they stayed in your yard. But we go around and people talk to us and there's chickens and they're not in their yard at all. So then people are complaining about that.
That seems like a very small minority of people.
Well, unfortunately, it usually is sometimes a minority that makes us change ordinances because it's, infringing on other people's rights as taxpayers.
Why isn't it put as a townwide vote so that a majority of people who don't want these ordinances in place can have that be seen?
Okay, I guess my question is, how do you resolve when you want to have chickens, and we say you can, then you get what you want. You've got your chickens. You can raise them, you can eat them, you can do what you want with them. But somebody next door or 2 doors down wants their property taken care of a certain way, and they don't want animals coming onto their property, chickens. So how does that, passing that, an ordinance that basically allows anybody to do what they want, how does it help those people?
That's not my concern. They could put up a boundary on their property so that people stay off. It's the same with cats. We aren't regulating cats wandering free. Why are we regulating chickens wandering free?
Because anybody who has livestock or other animals like that, and even dogs, if their dog, they want it to roam and be free in their yard, they put a fence up. It's not up to your neighbor to put a fence up to keep that dog out of their yard.
Says who?
It says ordinances and just kind of common sense. People aren't going to spend money on a fence when they know that they don't have a dog, but their neighbors do, and if it roams over onto their lawn, you can fine it. That's just the way people were. You go move into a town and that's just the structure of the way it is. And people are used to that. Or they used to be used to that.
I think, could I just say one quick thing? I think a little bit of the misunderstanding is coming is because Ally's saying her chickens don't wander out of her yard, she wants to let them loose in her yard, but the wording in the ordinance has a lot more than just keep your chickens on your own property. There
It
is
says
verbiage
confined.
about an enclosure and about, I keep bringing up the dried muck and things like that. I think that's maybe what we're a little bit concerned. We're going down this road of making ordinances where we're maybe not seeing all the consequences that are going to come. I'll be the first to say that I'm originally from California, and there's a reason that I moved to Vermont. It's a very overregulated state. There's cities all over the country that you could move and have all sorts of regulations, and we're kind of a special place here that we don't have that. And so I think property rights absolutely need to be protected. And I'd love to hear, you guys know more I guess, the route that you would take. If chickens are coming on my property and they're scratching up my flowers and I'm losing money, what is the route that I take for compensation? Because I think a lot of us are super confused in our neighbor relationships. If my neighbor's dog comes over and messes up something in my yard, all I'm gonna do is call him and he's gonna be right there to fix it or pay me. So all of these complaints that you guys are hearing, we're not hearing. So we're not understanding the story of like who's complaining, what's happening, why aren't these people putting up a fence if they need to enclose their chickens and keep them out of people's yards? I think we're all kind of confused about that. So I guess my two questions are, what's the route to take for compensation without this ordinance for property rights to be protected? And maybe you can share a little bit more, like we don't need names, but what are the situations that are happening? Why are they not able to get taken care of without this ordinance?
I came back in a Proctor last week on Route 3 from Pittsford. The chickens were in the state highway.
Route 3 right here.
No, Route 3 is over here.
Route 3.
My chickens and they're not ever in the highway? They're on
They
the
were
side.
when I came through.
And did you slow down?
Yes, I did. I had to go into the other lane. I had to cross the center line to stay away from the chickens.
So
Beat
just
your
to
horn?
speak to that, there's all kind of animals in Vermont that get in the road. It could be a deer, it could be a bear, it could be anything.
Yeah, chickens aren't wild animals.
What
I
about
understand
cows?
that.
Children are on the road.
How about the neighbors that are feeding the squirrels out? The squirrels are running across the road.
We don't get complaints on squirrels.
Isn't that how this started? Was that somebody's chickens were eating somebody's squirrel food
No.
back in the winter?
No,
Yes.
no.
The first meeting that my husband came to, that was what was discussed.
So I've gotten 2 or 3 complaints, and it has had nothing to do with squirrels. It has to do with people who don't want chickens on their property. And they have talked to their neighbors, and it hasn't changed the behavior. So I would throw the question back to you guys. How can we, there's got to be a middle ground here. How can we make it so that people who don't want to have chickens in their yard, they shouldn't have to spend extra money to keep them out? How are we going to help them?
So that's what I'm kind of wondering, what is the route that I would take if an animal, dog, cat, chicken, whatever, came on my property and damaged something? Do I call the sheriff? Like, what is the route that I take to make that complaint, other than coming to you guys? That's not what you're for.
To a point we are.
Yes, that's what we're here for, the people.
And they can call the sheriff, but without an ordinance for the sheriff to enforce, they really
You
can't do it.
can't do
It
that.
wouldn't be an ordinance, it would just be property damage. So for any reason, if somebody drove on my lawn and I saw them, how do I seek out compensation for that?
Well, you
That-
just go
that's
and talk to them, you said, right? Like the chicken problem, you just go and talk to them.
I'm not saying that's the solution, I'm asking,
Oh,
you're pegging me on one side or the other, and I'm not. I don't think we've talked before, but I can tell you a little bit of my history. You know that I have the farm on West Street. This ordinance doesn't affect me at all, so I don't have
Okay.
stake
No.
in this game.
Right.
But I do believe that right to farm laws are very important to protect. I'm also coming from, as a young family with small children, I did live in town. We had a little bit less than an acre, and we were able to do those homestead kind of things, like keep chickens, so that when we were able to buy a farm, we could hit the ground running. And I don't want people that are responsible chicken owners to, have their rights impeded on. I am totally supportive of keeping chickens on your own property. I don't
Exactly.
think
That's
Thank
what
you.
we're trying
but
to do.
there's more
Thank
of
you.
the ordinance than just that. So
I
if
agree
we could
totally.
change the wording of the ordinance so there's not all of these useless things in there. And I'm not saying that's gonna make everybody happy, but I feel like you're telling me that I'm on one side of this and I'm not. I'm trying to be the middle person here.
good, thank you.
Carrie?
Hi. So here's the basic problem. Again, it's the second time chicken owners were not even consulted. Second time. And this map does not address the issues that we talked about the last hearing. So here's the thing. I just don't know. I have a lot of problems that are in that ordinance, and I never see them enforced. It is impossible to enforce them, period. Have you run up my road lately? Have you seen it? It is not the street I've moved on to, but I stick to my property and I stick to my business. Does it affect my property value? It probably does. But here's the other problem. Chickens fly, so a 6-foot fence is all you can have. And then there's zoning that says what kind of fence you can
I've
have.
never seen flying chickens. My brother-in-law
How tall
has
was
a
our
farm.
fence? We fenced ours the first year. 6 foot tall. They can fly over that, sir.
They can put a roof on it.
They can fly over that, sir. Yes, they can.
Well,
So here's the deal. Not only do we have this, but if you use this map, which is not the answer, it is not even addressing the situations that were talked about. It also, it's a silly map anyways, because the amount of flocks in this town are ridiculous, and you can't do anything about them. But I don't see anybody saying anything about that. The bear, can't do anything about them. And you want to talk about animals in the road? It wasn't that long ago that you would sit and wait for the cows to go to the barn in the road and stop for them. Our speed limit in town is 25. You can't even enforce the speed limit in this town. People are flying. A week ago, an accident.
We're talking
right up
about
here,
chickens
40
here.
miles an
We're
hour.
Carrie, we're talking about
Yeah,
chickens.
because
There's no
you can't
crime.
enforce
Okay,
anything. It's
if you've got
ridiculous.
other problems,
Hey.
let's save it
It's
for another meeting.
ridiculous. No, you're not gonna shut me down. You're not. You're not.
Okay,
And you can make those faces and you can be condescending all you want.
I
But you're
will,
not.
because chickens
Because
are
it's-
what's being discussed.
But you're only hearing one side ever. It's always the people that are complaining about their neighbor. You never listen to the neighbor. You
Okay,
only listen to one side.
So Carrie,
That's a problem.
Carrie,
The damage of a chicken being on the road.
okay, hold on. Carrie, to me, that's why we're having this meeting right now. The whole purpose of this meeting is so that we can get feedback. One of the pieces of feedback that we got during the special town meeting was that we should make a geographic distinction as to where chickens should be and where they shouldn't be. There are other things that need to be addressed in this. I don't think anybody at this table, I won't speak for everybody, I was not thinking that we're gonna vote on this ordinance today. The purpose of this meeting is to have a review of the ordinance so that we can get public feedback. That's why we're here.
But again, you didn't ask anybody who owns chickens. You didn't ask anybody who signed the petition any questions before you put this before on the agenda.
So it's
Again,
now
and then you
the
just sit
time
in
for
there.
them to
Yes,
share.
that's why we're here.
Yes.
I know.
We had the initial meeting and some of the things raised are being addressed right now. And even I believe someone at that last meeting said that you can have chickens that do not fly. So you could put a fence up and keep them contained.
I'm not flipping my chickens.
Well, I'm just saying,
Not flipping my chickens.
okay, so I'm just saying that was what part of the thing. So like Ben said, we're here just to kind of talk about it. From the last meeting till now, everybody here has had opportunity to call the town manager or one of us and say, this is what I'd like to put forward for the next meeting. This is my thoughts, but no one has.
I personally didn't know that we should do that. so
Exactly.
that's
You did not make that
I
known.
didn't know that.
Well, I think, Carrie, you were on the board, you should know.
these are public meetings.
So
Yes.
now's the
That's
time
what
that
I'm-
you guys that would be affected by it, now you tell them what you want changed about the ordinance.
And
Right,
that's
so
what I'm
now's
saying.
the time that we're meeting together to talk about it.
Right, exactly.
I just don't think that this is gonna be the answer. I don't see how this can be enforced.
So what would be your solution?
I mean, the solution, we have a dog ordinance. Does that address any of the dog problems? Not really. They're still running all over the place.
Well, I witnessed my neighbor the other day getting violently attacked by 2 dogs, my neighbor in a wheelchair. I didn't know who to call for that. They're not leashed. But I think getting back to the chickens, my big issue with the wording is confined. And I think if you added the words confined to your property, would make me feel better than just confined, because how I interpret confined is that my chickens need to stay in their coop or a very small run, and I can tell you that the effects of that on the chickens is that they stop producing eggs, they lose their feathers, they can get very sick. And I think that if you just added the 2 words or 3 words on your property, that would make me
And-
feel a lot better than saying confined, because otherwise confined to me says in a cage.
And see, that was not my impression of this.
Yeah.
And that
It
was
doesn't say confined, it says enclosure.
closed.
It does say
An
enclosure.
enclosure.
So,
Fine, enclosure.
so that's a perfect example of somewhere where we can find a middle ground, because what I'm looking for, what the people who have come to me have said is, we want them to stay on our neighbor's property. Okay, so whether that's enclosed, confined.
We worded it wrong.
Yeah.
We're sorry.
And that's my issue, that's why I'm here today, is because
Good.
the wording in there makes me feel like, I'm being asked to treat my chickens in a way that is unhealthy for them.
And that is not the intention of the ordinance. I don't think that's the intention of anybody.
No.
So everybody would be happy if it was confined to your property?
So, and the second part about muck.
Yeah,
That's
we didn't
ridiculous.
get that about
Okay.
how to treat.
And again, we're going on semantics here. We used a model ordinance from Burlington, okay? If that was incorrect, we'll all be the first to admit it. But again, unless we get the feedback, and the only feedback we've heard the last couple of meetings have been from people who want the ordinance passed. So this is what we're asking for. We're asking for that kind of feedback.
Well, what good is the ordinance if you guys don't
You can't
enforce
enforce
it?
it.
That's the problem I have with it. I had a dog go in my pool. You have an ordinance, you have a leash law, and I went to court, and guess who lost? Right here. Because you guys don't enforce it.
Did you enforce it when you were on the
If you
board?
took them to
They did
court,
not enforce it.
if you
That's
took-
what the judge said, the town of Proctor did not enforce it. They let other dogs run around, and just because my next door neighbor dog got my pool, ruined it. You can't be favored.
John, with any ordinance, there's gonna be weaknesses. Nothing is 100%.
That's right.
So, people complained about dogs years ago. Dogs used to run loose everywhere in Proctor years ago.
They're all
There was no
okay.
leash law. So we had a leash law to try to confine it. Just like bad chicken owners, you're gonna have bad dog owners. People who let their dogs off the leash, or people who don't watch them when they're outside. And then you deal with those cases on a case-by-case basis.
What good is the ordinance?
Well, ordinances have been a part of municipalities.
Without the ordinance, you didn't have the ability to do that.
Yes, if there's damages, you do. If there's damages, there's a crime. So what she asked earlier, if somebody damages your property, then you call the cops and you file a crime report, and then you take the damages and you take them to small claims court, and they pay the damages for the damage to your property.
So is that
Pictures
correct,
of
that
it,
that's
and
the
you-
route
and there's
that
a
you
process
take
you
to
go
get property
through.
damage?
They don't have
Phil.
a police force over top of everybody, and it's really the job of the police to come in
Phil,
and
okay.
sort this out.
What was your question?
Is what he's saying correct? I was asking earlier about how do I go about getting reimbursement if my property is damaged by a chicken or anything? Is what Phil just said
Yeah,
correct? That
there's
we call
damage,
the
it's
sheriff
fine.
and it's.
Depending on what it is, like if somebody drives on your lawn and damages a tree, you can call a sheriff and they can try to track down who the person is. Most likely, it's
That's a
gonna be your
motor
property
vehicle.
insurance that pays for it.
So so what if we had just like a rough ordinance instead of all the like chicken care, enclosure, smell, all that stuff? The complaints are wandering chickens causing property damage. It's not roosters, we could take that out. It's not.
We're not taking that out. The neighbor down below me
We've
has a
never allowed
rooster.
So
roosters.
we have a noise ordinance, right? So they're going against the noise ordinance, so you could go
Don't do a whole
after.
separate ordinance.
It's a chicken
The
problem.
noise ordinance doesn't kick in until 10 PM.
Okay.
And it stops, or I can't remember off the top of my head in the morning, but it's pretty early, yeah.
So if there's a rooster crowing before 6 or 7 in the morning, then it's against the noise ordinance, right? Like, I'm just the one to caution, fleeing California, we don't want to have ordinance upon ordinance upon ordinance. Like, if you have a noise ordinance and you can enforce it that way, it's so much better than if things change. You're going to be really happy if someone can supply you with some food. So what I was originally going to say is, would it make everybody happy if we cut it down to chickens should stay on your own property? You don't have to have a fence. The goal is to stay on your property. If they wander to someone else's property, the livestock owner is the one responsible for the damages. Does that help at all to have that written in an ordinance for, like Phil was talking about the procedure of how you request, reimbursement for property damage? Does that help you enforce anything to have it in the ordinance to say the livestock owner is liable for any damage on anyone else's property?
I think the answer to that is yes. So for example, whenever we bring a question about zoning up, it's not an ordinance. So the enforcement of it is different than if you have an ordinance. So I mean, am I wrong? And that's always been my impression. So I think if we could come up with a framework that we can agree on, that will help people who live next to people who own chickens who don't care to have them in their backyard, and at the same time allows people to have chickens. That was my goal from day one when it came to the ordinance. There's not, I'm speaking for myself, there's not this nefarious plot that we want to take away people's rights at all, and that's been implied quite a bit. And that's not the case. What it is that we want people to be able, however they choose to do it, to enjoy their property. Right. And people pay enough for their property in town.
Yes, we do.
And so everybody should be able to enjoy their property.
So let's speak to the rooster part and noise, because if we're gonna say that about roosters, then shouldn't we be saying that about these trucks that are running around?
Can we stick with chickens, please?
Can we
Sure,
speak
we're
to,
chickens.
I am talking about chickens. If you're gonna say that it's because of their noise and their disturbance, let's talk about noise and disturbance.
We aren't getting complaints about trucks.
Really?
Really?
I don't believe that.
That's not true at all.
Really?
There's several very loud trucks. There's barking dogs all day. There's,
Well, we're talking about roosters, and that's always been the case, that they weren't allowed.
I understand what
So
you're
I
saying,
think
but
it's
if
just
we're
going
gonna talk about
the
noise,
noise ordinance.
if we're gonna talk about noise, and that's why they're on there, and that's why they're part of this, then we need to consider all the noise that's happening. I mean, we just put up jailbreak signs, and I was told that Beaver Pond Road, that didn't happen. It happens all the time. Continuous. There's a farmer, he's bringing his manure.
Okay, well, we'll can make a note of that for the zoning.
I said that before, but
Nuisance.
it's not any more noisy than other things that are happening in town.
Yeah, you're
It's
singling
not.
out chicken owners is what you're saying, you are, it's targeting chicken owners.
Right, you're saying, you know, you can't do this, but the dog that barks all day, or the trucks that are so loud in town, that's okay.
Well, no, but I got to clarify that. We didn't say it's okay. We put up signs. We asked no jailbreaks, and the state of Vermont made us take them down.
Yes.
But I'm talking about the other trucks, you know, we're gonna roll some coal
Okay.
kind of trucks
But
that are so loud in town, you know, some of the ones that were in the parade, it's loud,
Carrie, you brought up the jailbreaks. I'm just addressing that.
it's loud.
It doesn't
Yes.
say anything about roosters in this ordinance.
I thought it said no roosters.
Yes, it does.
No.
Where does it say it? It says it in zoning.
Okay.
It was put in zoning about 2000,
But it was,
between 2015 and 17. Chickens, it wasn't in part of zoning at all, actually. We were not aware of it.
Lisa's
Last
looking at the
meeting,
zoning
I can't
ordinance.
tell about my rooster. But
Well, I just say.
my roosters are not common, so it's no longer an issue, so.
But we're talking about a lot of things that doesn't seem like people have read.
no, that's not true, because
Well,
the
we're talking
first,
about
the first one,
that aren't in
it
here.
absolutely states,
Yeah.
because it was in my petition, it
And someone
absolutely
at the
did.
meeting.
And this is what you're voting right.
Okay. So that got changed in the rewrite.
That might have been an accident, so in the board packet, I
Okay, well, it doesn't
put
say
the
it.
ordinance in there, so I think the intent was for it to still be in there.
Okay.
But I'm speaking for the board here, so that was just a mistake on my part not to include the roosters in there. It might have been a copy and paste issue.
So one of the other things that was raised, and I'm just gonna ask you guys how you would handle this as well. So if chickens, say your chickens don't stay on your property, and they tend to roam, and someone's next door neighbor's dog got one, or it got hit by a car, would you hold them liable?
No,
No.
no,
Okay.
that's not any different than a cat or dog on somebody else's property.
I just wanna make sure, because it's been asked, so. Okay. Is there any other comments, questions?
So, just so I have an understanding, I mean, primarily, you're creating a nuisance ordinance to cover the issues of the chickens going into other people's yard. What about the other nuisances that are runtime as well? Why is that not covered within that nuisance section?
Chickens in the road, I think, was the main cause. Chickens in the road is what he said was the main cause. A few minutes ago.
Oh, that's what the complaints were, chickens
Yeah,
in the road,
chickens in the
not
road,
chickens doing
which is-
property?
No, it was also
No.
chickens and property.
Well, I get complaints about chicken. I get complaints about chickens causing property damage, but I'm not sure if it would trigger, you know, going as far as small claims court. You know, it's just them going in their mulch beds and tearing up their annuals and
And
perennials.
I think
Yeah.
the neighbors.
And that, probably 2 or 3 people who've talked to me about it have said that. Now, I don't know for sure that they're talking to them, but that's what they're telling me.
And so, I'm so confused about like, how is that not enforceable? Like, it seems to me like anything that's causing property damage, there should be a way for them to seek reimbursement for that, you know? That's what I'm not understanding. Like, how, if we pass this ordinance, what changes that makes it enforceable and easier? That's what I'm not understanding, I guess.
Writing ordinances is kind of tricky because you've got to pass them through the town attorney, and the town attorney doesn't like them to be loose or they're not very enforceable. So, you know, I think the intent here is that if you're on your backyard drinking coffee, or you go out in the morning, your garden's tore up or your mulch bed is tore up, then you know, the idea of living in a residential area isn't really being fulfilled because farm animals are entering your property and tearing it up. You could probably take them to small claims court, but do you really want to do that because your mulch bed got tore up? You know, you just have to go out there and put your mulch back, I imagine.
So passing this ordinance, you wouldn't have to go to small claims court?
No, it would be very clear that there's a law now in the town of Proctor that the sheriff can enforce. And, you know, if he were to come to the property and there were chickens there, and the owner said, "These aren't my chickens, I want them gone," you know, that happened to me one time. I got spooked by a chicken. I was in the back of my van and it just showed up, you know, I was there. We gave it some corn, it left, but,
If chickens are on the road, maybe we should find out why the chickens are crossing the road.
So, you know, and that just brings the point too, we're gonna use our sheriff dollar to enforce this. That's really not where I wanna spend my sheriff dollar as a taxpayer. I wanna spend my sheriff dollar on speed. I wanna spend my sheriff dollar on crime.
So-
I don't wanna spend it on.
It sounds
this.
like it's like you want everything, but you don't want to give us anything. And I think if you want it, how do you want to enforce it? We're telling you how we could enforce it. And then you're saying you don't want to use the sheriff to enforce it. So how else can we enforce it? So they're basically our animal control officer, any kind of animal. So that's who we go to for enforcement of any kind. So again, if you all have neighbors and you have your chickens and you say you all get along and they want your chickens, then it should be an easy conversation amongst people. And if they're
And I'm
going,
paying for somebody, I'm paying for the handful of people. Everybody in this town is paying for the handful of people that are not gonna abide by this.
What if we just made the map where the complaints are? There you go. Whoever these neighbors are that won't contain their chickens, let's just.
if anybody understands, municipal government and ordinances are put in place to protect the majority of people. So we're giving you what you want, we're letting you have chickens, it's fine, we're not taking it away, we agree you should have chickens. But we're also have to look at the people who don't want chickens, and what are we going to do for them? You're all taxpayers. So we need to try to protect everybody and make it fair, and this is the fairest way, is to allow you to, but make them confined to your property. And then let those people who don't have chickens not have to worry, and they can do what they want with their property. So that's what we're trying to do with this ordinance.
I guess I'm, just because I feel like you should have some data, so I guess I'm wondering, what are the number of complaints by different property owners? Like the total number of complaints by different property owners on the keeping of chickens in town? That number should be available somewhere, you're getting complaints, you should know, I've gotten 10 calls that are only coming from this one person, versus I've got 10 complaints from 10 different property owners. I guess I would like to know as a town member, that number.
I mean, it has been different.
Yeah. I mean, I guess this is my question though. What is wrong
did I not get an answer to that question?
I can tell you, I don't have that data, so.
But it has been,
Somebody should have that data.
Well,
it
yeah, and
has been
I'm-
a number of people, though. It hasn't been one person complaining or two people complaining. It's been a number of people.
Right, but a number could be 3, a number could be 100. I would like to know, you keep using the word majority, so you should be able to back these things up with data. And that data should be available on somebody's computer or somebody's notes right now.
But here's my question for you. You said, I mean, you want to have chickens in your property, that's perfectly understandable, and that's something that you want to do. But why isn't it okay for people to not want them on their property?
It is fine for people to not want to have them on their property. That's not what I'm asking. I am asking for the data, the number of people who have called from different properties to say, we have an issue. I'm hearing Tom say that he has an issue with chickens in the road.
Yes.
I'm hearing that.
And I don't want chickens on my property.
And that is one person who clearly has a complaint. And there are other people who you've said have had complaints. But what is that number in comparison with the total number of properties in the zoned area?
Just to provide some closure to that question's probably not gonna get answered. I haven't been keeping data on the chicken complaints, and I'm the only one with a computer. You know, call it a failure on my part, I guess. It just seemed, maybe.
So maybe moving
I won't make
forward,
an
that
excuse.
could happen. If you're getting complaints, they should be logged somewhere so that you know when you come to have your meetings.
If I do,
I've got 10 complaints this week.
and just to kind of correct my thoughts there, if someone does submit a written complaint to the select board, then we do hold on to that. But most of it's been word to mouth, and that has not been documented.
I have a question. So, okay, I understand that you haven't kept track of that. However, I'm wondering, have you called the person that owned the chickens and spoke to them about having the complaint?
I don't have every resident's phone number, so what happens usually is I'll try to make contact at the home, and most of the time they're not there, or they don't answer.
They haven't even gotten a warning that, hey, somebody's had a complaint against you. You haven't even mailed them anything that says, hey, you got a complaint. So they don't even know that there is a complaint.
Their neighbors have spoken to them.
That's what you say, and that's what they're telling you, but people lie.
People said it at the last meeting, 10 different people had complaints and stood up and said they spoke to their neighbors. All those people that were there were liars?
I'm not saying everybody, but people do. I'm just wondering
What's
why.
lied? Anybody that said anything now that way?
What I'm saying is that it's not been addressed. So we now have a problem at a town level because we haven't addressed it with the individuals. So now everybody pays. Fine, that's fine. But I'm just cautioning you that maybe we should start talking to people before we just cram something down everybody's throat, and that parts of this are not, they're just kind of silly. I mean, I get the property thing, I get the respect thing, but I feel extremely disrespected by having to be held to these rules. And I'll do them. I won't like it, but I'll do them. But people who are already having these issues are still going to have them because people are not going to do it. It's the same with the dog law. So that's kind of my problem. You're laying out a whole bunch of more. Here's more regulations. I did not move here to be under all these regulations all the time.
But the regulations were here before you moved here. The regulations have been here for years. Vermont is
Not
known
this.
in municipal government for ordinances and zoning regulations. You have to. So people can all live comfortably within the town that they choose to live in. And things have changed over time. Now you have different people,
You're bringing Burlington
you know?
rules down.
So we're not bringing Burlington. We've looked in through the league, through our insurance company. We've gone through a lot of small towns.
You got the rules from Burlington.
He said he looked at the Burlington ordinance.
Right, that's what I'm
Right, so he looked at it.
Why are you comparing this town to Burlington? Why don't you compare it to another town that's similar?
We do look at other towns similar to ours, size-wise.
We're like a tiny little town.
I know, and these ordinances have been around and everybody was fine with them years ago, and now it's an influx of different people and everything changes. So we're trying to make it better for everybody who lives here. And we're not saying, like we said, don't get rid of your chickens, keep your chickens. And if you're good chicken owners, you won't have a problem. But those who aren't, then they'll pay the consequences, hopefully.
I just want real quick, I probably won't send anyone a letter unless you've in clear violation of a law or you've done something really, really good. So those are 2 times we might receive a letter from me.
Okay, go ahead.
Quick question. I don't speak up much, but it seems like we're beating the heck out of this a little bit here. My question is just a little bit of information for me. This is gonna happen, the ordinance, because it's how you enforce things. What I was gathering from our last meeting, Mr. Ramsey said here, which made it make sense to me. Okay? And whether it's gonna be enforced or not, who cares, right? So what we're determining here is we need to get together and non-chicken owners, chicken owners, select board, right? And we need to come up with a plan that works for everybody. Is this another meeting or does this happen now? It's just my question. Like, are we gonna have another meeting where we actually formulate some kind of ordinance altogether, where that's a public thing?
I think ultimately we're all on the same page. It's the wording that we
Right.
have to agree on.
So when we
And
can
that's,
hash that out.
Well, we could, I mean, based on what you said here, I don't know if that makes everybody content or not. I mean, you're talking about a town, what, 1,600 people, and there's 4 chicken owners here, you know? So it's not like a big group that we're trying to, decide this on, and both sides are going at it. So basically what was said was that chickens need to be confined to your property. And then damages to other property becomes that owner of those chickens' liability.
So the changing of the ordinance and its wording happens now?
We can do it, and then we don't have to vote on it tonight, but we can change it.
I'm just curious, this is for my information.
We can change it here and then rewrite it and come back to a meeting to vote on it.
2 weeks would be good, the next meeting.
Whatever you guys decide, this is just information for me, I just kind of try to, like, I'm a man of results, so it just seems like we're kind of just running around circles here a little bit.
I agree.
Chickens with our heads cut out.
But
I think it would be a good idea to have a small brief committee, just for a couple of weeks of interested people who would actually get together and hammer out the darn ordinances. And there's lots of people who might be interested in knowing about that.
yeah, the other thing too, just because we decide that, it has to go to the town attorney. And he may change some things so that it makes it all legal. So if there is a case, he can defend it. So there may be, whatever's decided, it's still got to go to the town attorney. So he checks it against any state regulations. There may be some, who knows? But we don't actually, sometimes, it has to go through the legal process too.
Thank you. You answered my question, so it sounds like another meeting is due to kind of go over and check it out then.
So
See what we have.
just to take a census, is the majority of people here comfortable with this change? And is that pretty much what you think the change is going to be, or do you feel it's more?
I had a question about I did not, so I'm a teacher, I'm very busy this time of year. I did not take the time to sit down and reread what it said prior to the last meeting. But I feel like in the taking care of chicken waste or smell or something, there was something about needing to use specific types of products. And diatomaceous earth, I believe, is one, which we use to treat if our chickens have bugs or something, but not as a smell manager because
take all of that out.
yeah, because it can cause respiratory illness to chickens and humans. So I feel like if it's very specific and they're telling me that I have to use this certain product, that is too much. I don't think that needs to be part of how, it seems like somebody who doesn't care for chickens wrote those rules, not knowing anything about chickens, that they Googled some things, people use this, so I'm gonna put those wordings in there.
So do you have a suggestion if something were to be put in there as far as if there's any?
Management of odor or something, I don't think you need to
We don't need
specify.
that, right? Like the
I mean,
whole
I
goal
don't
is
think
keep
you need it
the
all.
chickens on your property and you're liable for any damages they cause, right? So just kind of like start over and like that's the ordinance everybody would be happy with?
Yep.
We don't need all other stuff?
Yeah.
I wouldn't use property, I would use control. Because now you're getting yourself a little barn with horses, pigs, other animals.
What do you,
None of those are allowed in zoning, so I'm not
Right.
sure.
Huh?
Those aren't allowed in our zoning, so I'm not sure.
I know, but you're picking, you know.
I don't get what you mean, take out property. I mean, how, you have to, it has to, you've got to refer to the property that they're
Or
on.
you say they have to be under control, the chickens,
Right, and that's what we're saying.
which is saying property.
Well, it's their property.
John, how do we prove a chicken's under control if it's not on somebody's property? How are we gonna demonstrate that?
Well, if she's got her chickens under control on her property, that's fine.
So why do we need to take property out then?
Because I think what you're gonna run into is people that have horses, cows, pigs, and then pigs get out and stuff like that. That's gonna start something. That's where I think. Because you're picking on chickens, you're not picking on everything. You're just picking on one person.
Just for,
It is a
just for,
specific chicken thing tonight.
yeah, just for quick, well, and I think it's kind of agriculture as a whole, but it's been called the chicken thing. So, Section 4 of this amendment says, "No fowl or chicken shall be kept on property in such a manner as to cause public nuisance, and the buildings and yards shall be kept deodorized by the application of dry earth or some other effective absorbent or disinfectant."
So what if you just left it to be kept deodorized?
Okay.
I mean, because you don't want stink coming into your yard, but just don't cover the method of stink control.
And then since it's right there, is there a reason why the number 12, for example, was chosen? I'm not clear on that, because just so you know, if I lost 2 birds, okay? Let's say I have 12 right now, I've got 11, but if I had 12 right now and I lost 2 birds because a possum or something came in the night took up 2, to replace those, if I went to Tractor Supply or wherever, there's a minimum of 6 that those stores regulate that I buy. So now I've got to buy 6 and dispatch 4 other birds.
Or find homes for them.
Yep.
Right, and if we have in the ordinance that it needs to be like deodorized, like neighbors can't be complaining about smells, then it doesn't really matter how many you
Correct.
have, because everybody's got a different property size, right? It's not like a uniform, everybody's got the same number of square feet, so somebody with more property could support more than 12, whereas somebody else, maybe they shouldn't even have 12 for how small their yard is. So
We kind of put a number on everything as far as animals.
And
So I think that's what it was.
And factually, just answering the question, the reason it's 12 is because that mirrors the zoning bylaws. Where they got the 12 number from when they made that, I don't know.
I think that's kind of why we're resistant to an ordinance, because that was already on the books, and so we just have to keep going with that. We don't know why it was 12, but it happened back in the 50s or whenever, and so now we just keep going with it. And so that's what gives me pause about adding more ordinances, because we don't know what's going to change in the world down the road. And like I said, we all might be really thankful to have neighbors that have chickens pretty soon.
I mean, why is it 12? Why does it have to be 12?
I think it's, I actually think that it is addressing accepted ag practices, and it also enumerates other animals in there as well. By the size of
It does, right
your
under
farm.
So is there anyone here who's concerned about chickens being in their yard that wants to speak?
I don't have chickens, but I have a garden, and I don't want chickens in my yard and garden, so I understand people's point of view. But I don't want people to not have chickens. I love chickens running around. I think it's cool. As long as they stay out of my yard.
I made a statement that I don't care if they have chickens, but keep them off my property.
Right.
Right.
If I wanted chickens, I'd have them myself.
Yeah.
So are you comfortable with us rewriting it with these suggestions made and then revisiting it on the 26th of June? And hopefully
Yeah, and,
for
you know,
approval? So basically, we're addressing the chickens being confined to your property, and that you're liable for any damage done to other people's property. And then also that you manage the odor. You keep it deodorized, but with no specifications as to what to use.
Could we submit a sample ordinance, possibly, with working together with someone?
So I was
I
suggesting-
am in favor of what you just proposed.
But we have to remember too what Bruce said as far as the lawyer, that we'll come up, we'll decide something, but ultimately, he's gonna be the one with the final say.
And then is it,
There's an ag committee.
Posted for
Well, you could decide.
more than
They all
24
want to
hours
help write an
before
ordinance.
Okay,
And you can establish an urban
26 or whatever
agricultural
it- like-
committee.
okay.
This was posted more than 24 hours
with
too,
the
but
one coming
yeah,
up.
yeah.
Because it just doesn't seem like you guys have a lot of time to meet with your lawyer and make any other potential revisions.
Well, we
Well,
will
we
get
wouldn't-
your input, and then we'll go to the
Then it
lawyer.
goes to the lawyer.
Does it come back for review after that?
That's what we're talking about for the 26th, right?
You know, after the lawyer, because he might make some changes.
It might take,
Yeah.
who knows, 2-3 weeks for him to get back. And whatever, we have to go with his advice.
We could post it on the agenda when we're gonna vote on the ordinance, after it comes back from the lawyer, so that
Yeah.
you could
But,
have input.
So is there a show of hands who would like to be a committee to try to create something to formally give to us?
And it doesn't have to be just chickens. I mean, there seems to be a lot of agricultural experts here in the room that could probably be really informative for a lot of decisions in the future, especially if, you know, we're gonna kind of harbor this kind of culture.
And we could assign a committee and then come back in 2 weeks with what you, or even before then, you could send it along and we could try to incorporate it. So the next meeting we get more, we hopefully get this put to bed.
That would be great, that's what I thought was gonna happen after the last one, before we were here again, is that we would have that, because I agree with being respectful to your neighbor, I do agree with that. However, I don't agree with the wording of how it's being put out to somebody who owns chickens. Right.
So is there a show of hands who'd like to be on a committee? Because if it's not, okay, all right. So we can actually appoint a committee,
Sure.
an ag committee.
Can I ask a quick question, just to the chicken owners? I like to, so if chickens do go on someone else's property and it's in violation of the ordinance, and I guess they would probably have to do some damage for someone to really get angry, what would you say would, the ordinance should say to, like, dissuade, or, I mean, generally things have a fine or some type of cost for someone for breaking the rules, so what would dissuade, what would be fair to dissuade chicken owners
Probably
to actually obey it, to try
pay
to
for
do
the
it?
damage, right? Like if you're paying for plants, that adds up really quick. Or if you're paying for labor for landscaping, that
So
adds
what's,
up
that's
really
how
quick.
important it is.
Yeah, but I
What's the
think there should be
process
a
now?
penalty on top of that because of the ordinance. We're talking about property damage. Of course, the chicken owner should pay for any property damage. But on top of that, we're talking about an ordinance, and so you're breaking the rule, and so there should be some type of fine or some type of regulation for.
Well, no, because the rule they're breaking is the damage that's done, and if you're paying for the damage.
That's a crime.
Sounds
in
like
itself,
right now there's not a
so-
citation procedure.
Right, did you have a question?
So what's the process now if you have neighbors complaining about each other, property violations, that kind of, what is your process of taking that to you guys?
We can address it straight to the committee.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know if there's like a step-by-step where if somebody calls with a complaint, you know, you reach out to the person, whatever, if you can codify that in an ordinance for chickens, so it follows the same format.
Get like a warning
That way,
letter. and-
exactly,
yeah.
that way, people who are abiding by the ordinance, they don't have to worry about anything, but people who don't, there's a process that they're aware of the ordinance, they know when they had a violation, and they have a chance to respond through that.
We can discuss this more, you know, once the committee is formed.
Yeah.
But actually, the town's attorney wanted us to require, they didn't want us to put it in the public nuisance ordinance. They thought that was too easy, it was too loose. They actually thought there should be a separate ordinance called like a backyard chicken ordinance, where you had to get permits for your chickens, like you would a dog. Because when you're actually talking about an animal, you can tie that. So if, you know, the wheelchair incident, you can tie that dog back to someone because that animal should be permitted. And then enforcement can be placed on, and it was in that case. And then enforcement can be placed on, well, you got a letter, you got this and that. Here, you're not setting that up, so there's not any clear ownership of the animal. So I think that's one of the reasons why enclosed is really important here, because if you complain about your neighbor's chicken, your neighbor can say, well, that's not my chicken, but the sheriff can say, but you've got chickens on your property and they're not enclosed. So you're in violation of the public nuisance ordinance, which is a $200 fine per day, per violation, which is per day. I know that was a lot, but ordinances are famously not easy to kind of spew out.
So is there anybody who isn't a chicken owner that wants to be on the committee as well? Okay, you do, neither of you? Yeah, okay. So is the committee able to meet before the 26th?
Yeah, I can,
Should anybody on the board be on the?
I'd like to be on the committee.
Okay. Anybody else?
How about if we do it next Monday here?
or you can give me your contact information on the sheet over there, and I can send you an email and we can schedule it that way, set up an agenda. I think it'll be fun.
Okay.
I do just want to say that, like, when we were just out of college and, which was almost 19 years ago now at this point, when we were looking to buy property, to be homeowners, one of the things we did do for all the towns that we were looking at is that we did go through and look at which towns do allow chicken ownership within the city limits. I am hoping that this isn't like the first step in eventually removing that right.
It's not.
No.
It's
No.
That's not our
That wasn't our
intention at
intent.
all.
Because what I was hearing was people have moved in from elsewhere who don't want chickens, and I guess I'm worried that the eventual thing is people from very urban areas who have come to our rural states are going to be saying, we don't want to live in an area with livestock.
No, I disagree with that. I happen to know 3 or 4 people who are concerned about the chickens coming on their property, and they've probably lived in Proctor longer than you have. No offense to you, but
No,
so it's not like these newcomers are coming in and trying to change.
Right.
Because that was what was stated earlier in the meeting, that's why.
No, what I meant was that basically it's the new people who want the chickens versus the people who've been here years that never raised chickens. So that's where the difference was coming in. So it's the opposite of, I think, of what you were interpreting. So, and I would think that any of you who are here are good chicken owners, so this isn't going to affect you or hurt you in any way because you're going to be the ones that would abide by it, You're going to do the right thing. Right,
It's the same with the dog owner.
Right.
That's the point.
Right.
It doesn't get enforced, and
well, I know, and then, we might have a rare situation where a dog does get loose, but it's not the norm.
it is the norm.
It's a norm for, again, poor dog owners. It's not the norm for most dog owners in Proctor.
But it is the norm in Proctor. I mean.
For some
there-
owners.
There's at least 2 neighbors that I have in my vicinity, maybe 3, that their dog is not contained to the property.
File a complaint.
Yeah, and this, it's probably gonna be the same with chickens. You're gonna have a couple of those that
Don't
don't care
just
about
talk,
what the
file a
ordinance
complaint.
says.
But you file a complaint for what?
We've
Nothing's
had
gonna
3
happen.
dog complaints this year, and we have handled them.
So who's the first person, if we have a complaint, who's the first person that we should be contacting? Because I did not contact I was horrified the day that I watched my neighbor get attacked by a dog, and I didn't even know who to go to, so.
Could we stick with chickens tonight?
Yes, but I'm
You
asking
can
who's the
always
first
call
person
the
to
town
file-
manager and talk to him anytime.
Thank you for answering my question.
Okay.
Is there any other comments about chickens?
Oh, and
I would like to set up a meeting date tonight. Otherwise, it's just gonna go back and forth, and I can't.
Monday, the 19th.
Is a room available, Michael?
I'm looking right now. I believe it should be.
You aren't closed that day.
Oh, that's Juneteenth.
Are you closed?
Yes.
I'm happy to allow you to have the community room downstairs anytime you would like Monday.
Library?
Thank you. At the library.
If you could do me a big favor, whoever wants to be on it, if you don't want to stay here and leave your information, you can just email me. My email's online, but it's just manager@proctorvermont.com, and it's all spelled out. And we'll say, for bylaw reasons, I guess we'll say 3 is a quorum.
So 6 o'clock then, Monday?
That's fine with me.
Is that good with everybody else? Okay.
Great.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Moving on.
6 at the library.
Okay, next on the agenda is the assessor's contract. Is there a motion to approve the assessor's contract for fiscal year 2024?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Fiscal year 2024 sheriff's contract. Is there a motion to approve the sheriff's contract for fiscal year 2024?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
What's
Riverside,
that increase on that contract?
I can't give you the specific number, but I did match it up to what we budgeted for in October, and it matched perfectly.
Okay.
okay. Riverside Cemetery Management and Planning. This is kind of a working session, just to kind of discuss things that need to get out in the open and how we're gonna remedy a lot of the issues there. See how much money the Cemetery Commission saved up over the years. And is there money to hire a surveyor to create new maps and install markers? To decide whether to dig graves in-house or contract it out. And we were told that we do about 10 burials a year, and most of them are cremations.
And
And-
sorry.
Go ahead.
Just for transparency, those are my suggestions. The Cemetery Commission, as most of you know, aged out. And it has come under the charge of the Selectboard, and Selectboard member Curtis and I have been trying to handle the reins on it.
Yeah, so, I mean, one of the concerns that I have is that we get somebody to look at the deed books, the maps, and make sure that everything is where we think it is and know it is. And it's just been done by groups of volunteers for so many years, and I just want to make sure that with something like that, I think we want to be as precise as possible. And we want what people have to go through when they're dealing with buying a plot or doing a funeral, it should be as easy as possible. And so I think it's important that we kind of take a look, see where we are at fiscally with the cemetery fund, and see if we could hire somebody to survey it and put in row markers and things like that.
Yeah, none of the deeds have survey none of the deeds have locations on them, so you just go by the map that's been, how old do you think that, it looks old, huh?
Yeah, it's got to be from the 50s or something.
It's an old map, and yeah, there's no survey markers out there, so it could get, confusing.
When's the last time this was done?
We don't know, that's the thing.
The survey?
There's not
Survey?
any,
Just, again, a reminder, it was under the charge of the Cemetery Commission.
This was done when I was on the board.
What, a survey?
Yes,
Who did it?
we got a grant.
Do you know who did the survey?
I don't know.
Where's the map?
You would know.
And then there was,
I think that was through Rutland Regional something.
and then Select Board member Curtis and I talked a little bit about maybe the town crews taking over the burials instead of contracting it out. I think they probably need a little bit of training on it first, but it's an option. It skips us from being a middleman because, I would think that if you did have a contractor, we would just be like the money holders, first of all, you'd have to go out for bids, you'd have to do a request for proposals, and then, for 3 years, you'd have a contractor. They would pay the town, then you would have to schedule the contractor, then you have to pay the contractor, so you'd still be pulling a little bit of administrative weight. You'd be still spending money and labor by setting that up. And most of the burials, not most of them, but I'd say half of them are urns.
And everything we've done so far since we took over has been urns.
Yeah, so, you don't need a backhoe and all that stuff.
So how much would you charge somebody to do a burial, and then how does that work out? Like,
We hadn't.
Got to look at the funds and see what is available for money that's been in the account.
I say my family or something, and they're.
That's to be determined.
And then, let's say Michael's crew is handling the burial, like how does that work out with how much does that cost? And how's that
We
work
would
out?
set the rates, because we're not, our bottom line is a profit, and it's public, so we would set the rates according to what our labor, equipment, and material fees would be to perform the work.
I see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was my question.
Why are we getting into this?
Because the cemetery commission, everybody resigned.
Maybe you want to be on the cemetery.
Yeah.
The person who gets, the other person buried usually pays for that.
What'd you say? I didn't hear.
What?
John, what did you say?
That's part of the cemetery, that's part of the stone. When you do all that, one person does it all.
Not necessarily.
No.
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 Well, it used to be when you bought a plot there, you were required to put in corner markers.
Right.
Riverside did not require you to put up a stone. Some cemeteries require stone. There should be a pamphlet someplace that was revised before COVID that says what the requirements are when you buy a plot, how much a plot is, and there was a map that said what plots were available. And I know that because I used to help them because they met at the library.
Phil?
This cemetery commission, it's obviously sounds like a lot of work. Is it like a paid kind of thing for people to be on, to handle?
No.
It's totally
Volunteer.
It's a lot of keeping track of things.
Most localities have their Parks and Rec department lead up the cemetery work.
Okay.
And most towns, like even the city, I know, struggling with cemeteries because the funding's no longer there. People, if they're dying, they're not being buried, and that's the funding. So that's why like maintenance of the grounds and stuff is falling to the wayside, and the money's not there, so.
But there is an investment account for Riverside that has over $100 and some thousand in it.
There is.
We haven't verified that's the amount. It could be, but Celia's, our treasurer's been out of commission last week, so.
So I just wanted to put this on everybody's radar, and maybe we can move forward with it as we clear our plates off a little bit more.
Okay. Enforcement of ordinance violations, junk vehicles, and ground maintenance. So that's kind of been brought to our attention too. I know there was no mow May, and now we're in June, and I think people think there's no mow June. So, and then the vehicles that are unregistered, because there is an ordinance that you can only have, I believe it's one unregistered vehicle in the property, and there's some properties that have a lot of unregistered vehicles, and there's a lot of places that have grass that's like yay high and stuff. So again, that becomes kind of a health issue too with neighboring houses and stuff like that. So that's why we kind of put this on there too. And again, we use our sheriff to kind of go around, and he usually does drive-bys and tries to check to see when there's a lot of houses with like vehicles like piled up in the yard that, you know, definitely you can tell they're not operable or they're unregistered. And so we send letters to warn them on those situations. And the same with grass. We've done that in the past too. Send letters that they have to clean up the grass by X amount, like a certain date, and then keep it maintained. So.
Are welfare checks ever done on people who have grass that is, you know, a foot plus high? And I'm only asking that because I walked past a house that there was still mail in the mailbox for days, and I guess I didn't know who lived there, or if somebody was even living there, but I just wonder if welfare checks are ever done to make sure, you know, an elderly person hadn't fallen in their house and,
We do welfare checks if it's brought to our attention, you know, I mean, unless like we drive around, which sometimes we do, just to see if grass is high or carts are out there and stuff. But if someone calls us and says, you know, I'm concerned about my neighbor or concerned about someone else in a house because of the grass, because the mail's piling out of the thing and I haven't heard from them, then we will do a welfare check and we contact the sheriffs to go to.
A lot of times they're repeat offenders too, you know, and you kind of know, you understand the circumstances when you go to the home.
Okay. All right, any other business? Is there a motion to go into the Board of Water Commissioners?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, the state revolving loan application, approval for water systems asset management planning.
And just as a reminder, this is a 100% forgivable loan, so the town is only benefiting from this assessment of its infrastructure.
Is there a motion to approve the loan application for A&E to create a water system asset management plan?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Lead and copper inventory plan update.
Just really quickly, so the asset management plan is optional, the lead and copper inventory plan is mandated.
Michael, I'll bet a lot of people here don't know what's gonna happen.
Okay, so I can't say the state's making us do it because they would say the federal government is making them do it. So, you know, it just rolls downhill. And as most of you probably know, a lot of infrastructure in the United States, especially water, is still made up of lead pipes. And the federal government also recognizes, what's the metal that they say could have absorbed the lead? Not corrugated. No, it's lost my mind. Cast iron. Okay, so the federal government's also saying that if you have lead pipe downstream from cast iron, it could have gotten the lead soaked into it. So as a mandate, the town has to go through and assess every single property in town to see if they have a lead service connection to the town-owned water main. And this is not just this portion that the town owns in the right-of-way, this is the homeowner's portion as well. I think the whole intent of this is just to get all the lead out of the ground. So as part of this, it's a funded mandate, thankfully. So the state reached out to me last week and said the town has the availability to receive a $100,000 forgivable loan to perform the lead and copper inventory. And Aldrich and Elliott, who's the town's engineer, since they're performing the asset management plan, said that they would, in correlation with that, would be happy to do the lead and copper plan. So there isn't a formal agreement that's been drafted up by A&E yet. I just wanted to give you all the update on that's kind of where we're at with the lead and copper plan now. We're not at the replacement phase yet. I just want to be clear with that. We're just at the inventory phase. But that inventory phase does require the town to recognize a plan or to form a plan on how to remove that pipe. I imagine it will be another forgivable loan where we're going to have to get temporary construction easements. But I also imagine that, well, I can tell you this now. If we come to your home and want to go into it to inspect for lead, you can tell us to go away. That'll probably be the same if we want to replace it too.
So it's kind of a waste of time.
Could be.
That's a state. Okay. Anything else under Water Commissioners?
That's it.
Is there a motion to go out of the Board of Water Commissioners and into the Board of Sewer Commissioners?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Wastewater treatment plant scoping study update.
Can I ask one quick question? I know, like, you guys want to get out of here, but what is the proposed plan for people that don't want you to come in and take a photograph or whatever you have to do for their water intake inside their house that's their property? What's the plan for the people that refuse this or that don't
We just mark it on the spreadsheet, would not allow, and, us to gain entrance.
But there, there's no forward of what happens later kind of thing figured out? Okay. All right.
Not at this time.
Right, yeah,
Drone strikes.
sure.
And I believe that's just for the, the municipal water system.
Okay, wastewater treatment plant scoping study.
I actually don't have an update on this, but since there are a lot of people here, just so you know, the town is currently performing scoping study to make upgrades to its wastewater treatment plant. Big upgrades. Well, more maintenance than upgrades. But.
Our lagoons are, the fabric in the bottom of our lagoons are way beyond their life expectancy, and they're having problems with it.
Yeah, the most difficult part about it is the sludge that's built up over many years. There's nowhere to take it.
You know where you're taking it?
No,
Nobody knows where we're taking it, but they do know it'll be very expensive wherever it goes.
I know.
Okay,
Sure.
is there a motion to go out of the Board of Sewer Commissioners and back to the regular Select Board meeting?
so moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, town
Aye.
manager report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to try to be fast here, so if anybody wants to interrupt me, or you can ask questions at the end. I attended quite a few meetings, but the most fun was I got to meet Governor Scott at a legislative breakfast last week, and we talked a little bit one-on-one. I talked to him, he's a cyclist, so we talked about bicycling. And then he also talked about towns like Proctor that were built around industry and are no longer like that. And I explained to him, I doubt Proctor will ever be what it once was, and I only said that because we house the biggest industry in the world at the turn of the 20th century. And he said back to me, you never know. So that was kind of neat. And so it was a nice meeting. He was a nice man.
Did you get a picture with him?
No, I didn't. Or an autograph or anything. So, so employees will receive an updated copy of the employee policy this week. And then Beamers won't start July, it'll start October. So we got plenty of time to get that rolled out. Beamers is our retirement system through the state. The pool opened today. Lisa, I think it went pretty well, didn't it? Okay, good. Glad to hear it. The playground was successfully installed, and I think it looks great. It's doing what it's supposed to. And Mortimer Proctor applications will be presented to the board at our next meeting this June. Really exciting news about the South Street sidewalk project. We've acquired all the easements, all the temporary easements that we needed, and it's under review by Gary Cutfer now. I'm hoping to have something back this week. And then I'll forward that on to the state, and they'll review. There was some hope. Some select board members asked me, do we think that the project will start this summer? Looking at the schedule, I highly doubt it because it still has a lot of state review to go through. So it'll most definitely probably be 2024 when the South Street sidewalk is installed. Not the marble portion of the sidewalk. And then summer paving, the town did receive informal notification that we're going to receive Class 2 highway grants, and West Street's going to get paved, a large portion of it, a little over a mile. I don't have the award amount yet, but we applied for 200,000 and then matching the towns. The hope is that bids come in low enough we can do the whole street and then maybe patch up some other areas in town.
Part on West Street, is that like by Capens where those really bad potholes are?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
the way it goes, it's like it's good and then it's bad.
Yeah, there's a spot.
Yeah.
What's the fix going to be? Is it going to be like the asphalt that's all bad going to be ground down and just
Yeah.
Okay.
Total mill and pave,
Okay.
so fresh start.
Question, West Street, is it all set to go? To pave it?
We don't know the money yet.
In what way?
In what way, you tell me, you should know what way.
You just said West Street's
Well, I think
getting
it's ready.
paved.
I think it's ready to go. You mill
Is
it and
that-
pave it.
Okay.
You mill it and you pave it. And then we'll send out bids probably once the agreement is come through. I appreciate the question.
I
John.
think the question I'm asking and looking for is all the culverts in good shape? All the culverts cleaned out on each end? The banks, they're all sloped? That's what you look for before you pave. You get all that project done, so when they come in to pave, it's done, it's complete. That's what I'm missing.
Thanks, John. So the Tri-Town Trails study, the state has approved the municipal project manager agreement with the Rutland Regional Planning Commission. So Stephanie Burke will be managing that project. I keep giving you those updates. It's only because there's always tons more steps involved than I think there are. So it just kind of goes on. I'll skip the Merck grant logging road. So I went up there with the this came up at our town meeting this year. I went up there with our forester, Andy, and you know, he did point out some areas along the trail that needed some serious upgrades. But our engineers don't really want to touch it because engineers don't really deal with logging roads. You know, they deal with regular municipal roads. So I'm thinking me and a few other contractors would go up there, and I'll try to get as much information as I can to see what route the town would go. But we've got a 3-year window. It's under current use, so we've got a 3-year window from the date forward and backwards to do the logging. So that's a trickier one, but we'll get it figured out. We had an excellent Public Works Appreciation lunch. We had cowboy beans and mac and cheese and sandwiches from Kamuta's, and the guys were very thankful, and so was I. And facility use agreement, Ann Reed and friends are holding a private event to celebrate to celebrate the graduation for 6th graders. And I've received insurance and the facility use agreement, and I can show anybody a copy if they want to see it. And town hall improvements, if you've come by the front office here today, Peggy Staddle and a few 5th graders helped out with planting a perennial garden in front of town hall. We also moved a bench in front of it. So big thanks to them for helping us do that. And also to the Public Works guys for digging it out. And Mark, who's on the fire department, tilled it for us, which was really nice. And then we figured out the cemetery commission. Audit season's coming up soon. And I've got a few other updates that came up, but they're not that important. So thanks for letting me share.
I also want to add about the parade, the Memorial Day parade. I think it was a really good turnout and stuff. And then the skating rink also had the grand opening for the playground, hot dogs, gave away hot dogs, ice cream, roller skating for all the kids. And they went through, I think, 150 hot dogs and got rid of all the ice cream and stuff. So it was good, and there was some good participation and stuff. So
yeah,
nice.
I was asked to give like a ceremony before, and I shouldn't have worn the leopard print. I didn't know that they'd asked me to do that, so.
All right, sheriff's report. Any questions or comments? No? No. All right. Any other comments or business to be taken up?
2 meetings ago, I asked you, the board, I want to know why it costs us so much a mile in this town, all right, for 22 miles. We're the highest in our town. I'd like to know the reason.
I wasn't aware we were the highest in the county.
Oh, I thought you were here.
Oh, well, I was on there.
I asked for it and nobody seemed to have an answer.
I think it's you can get a clear picture of it by looking in the town report where the budget is for each line item.
I'm asking, why are we so high per mile?
Yeah, and I'm answering, so if you look into in the town report, we've got each line item for every expenditure, and that tells you exactly what the money's being spent towards.
So where are you getting your other figures, John, for the other towns, cities that you're comparing us to?
I can compare it to any town you want.
I know, I'm asking you where you're getting the information though from.
From what, the other town?
Yeah.
On the miles of road and what their budget is. You take their budget on the highway and you take like Wallingford. Wallingford has 2 guys with 1 substitute for 60 miles of road. And they pay less per mile than we do. I can take Clarendon. Same thing. Ira has 1 person. 1 person.
It's hard to compare us with, we have 22 miles of paved road.
Yeah, you got 22 miles of paved road.
Ira has how many miles of paved road?
I think they got 18. No paved roads, all dirt.
Exactly, John.
But dirt is
How much-
hard to plow and maintain and.
I don't believe that for me. You know what it's good, you know what blacktop costs?
I know blacktop.
Put it down. It's
Yeah.
very expensive. Dirt, you run a grader over it, boom, you're good. That's my guess. You know, we have no dirt road.
I'll look into it. I did have that noted on the last meeting you had though.
And it goes, I mean, town. I've noticed in this town, this potholes every place. Every place. And they're not being taken.
John, you said that before. Why don't you give them a list, okay, and they'll work on them?
They don't work on it.
Hey, John, I'll look into that cost, because I know I had it written down in the last meeting, and I'll see what I can find for comparisons, okay? Okay? Okay?
No.
No.
And also, one more thing, how come the Field Street gates, though, I can't understand. That's my drinking water, that's your drinking water, and everybody's drinking water. Look what Bennington went through. Look what Bennington went through. Springfield's going through it. I'm very concerned, it only takes 5 minutes to destroy a water system.
I just want to curb any anxiety that might be caused from that statement, is that that building is locked. There is no gate around the gate that John's talking about. And if anyone were to enter that building, an alarm would go off on every single operator's cell phone alerting us that there's a trespasser in the building.
So you're gonna guarantee if that alarm goes off, you're gonna stop the pollution? Just ask.
There's no fence around the entire,
It don't make no difference, but it's just like you going to the state forest. They put the gate up for a reason, to keep people out of there. I mean, it's just, it disturbs people not to drive through. I mean, up in Chittenden, we had a gate up there, Bruce, and you know, that was shut every minute, every time, up in Chittenden. That gate was never left open, and people could go up in Chittenden.
yeah, they could go right up to Boiling Springs too. There's not a fence around Boiling Springs. We never had a problem.
You ask other towns, they all close the gates. It's my drinking water, once it happens, it's over with.
Yes, John. Thank you.
Okay, is nothing else, is there a motion to find that premature general knowledge regarding a personnel matter would clearly place the public body or person involved at a substantial disadvantage if discussed in public?
Second?
All in favor? Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Is there a motion to enter executive session to evaluate an employee under provisions of 1 VSA Section 313A3?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Regular
Thank you.
meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.